Are we ready to fly, Packer?
Uh-huh.
Well,
You're supposed to say something like engage or increase thrust.
just fucking go.
I would have loved to see Jean-Luc Picard or one of the other Star Trek captains just fucking go.
Oh yeah,
In a
bro.
bad mood.
That's too good
You
to
know?
be true. That would be like the best of both worlds if they would do something so realistic.
Hey, if Quentin Tarantino ever got to do his Star Trek movie, that's
Yes,
what they'd say. Just fucking go.
I would love to see Quentin Tarantino's take on Star Trek. To be honest, it would
Yeah,
be
me too.
funny. And the cool thing is that Star Trek is like one of those IPs that everybody can grab and like do their own take on it. Many people have.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, what was that other show? Now I've got a complete mental blank. I hate it when that happens. There was another show that was a homage to Star Trek, and I really
uh,
liked it too. And I can't think what it was. We
well,
haven't
you know that
covered
the
it yet
movie
either.
Space Quest is a movie that was homage on that too, right?
Oh, totally. And it was a very
You're
good one
looking
as well.
for it.
We've covered that.
You don't remember which one is it?
Oh my
Chances
poor
are I might know it. It's not
the
Galactica, right?
Orville, the Orville.
Oh, the Orville, of course.
Yes, the Orville. I could not think of it. My brain just went. I know
We
there's a
haven't
scene out of
covered
it.
the Orville, funnily
No, we
enough,
haven't. No,
and
the
we
reason
should.
we haven't covered the Orville is because we were supposed to have a special guest come on, and it never happened. So,
Yeah. Well, I
um,
mean, you like that we like to aim too high sometimes. We want to bring, I think
yeah,
it's McFarlane.
yeah,
We want to bring it into the show. I
yeah.
mean, it will be
No, it
awesome.
was actually somebody who was on the show as an extra. So
Oh, that's
that was
true.
what Robert was planning.
That's true.
Speaking of Robert, Robert's not here. We don't have Mr. Number One host, Mr. Happy Endings, because he can't deal with Black Mirror. Black Mirror season 1, episode 3 was covered in season 1, the entire history of you, and it kind of broke him. He. I mean,
Yeah.
listen to it. You were on it. This was pre-Ray, but yeah, he did not deal well with that. Apparently, it spiked his heart rate, and he felt quite unwell. And he put Black Mirror on the I'm not going to be here list, so he's not here. But instead, you have Mad Scientist Ray from Down Under.
Yep. And Geo Captain Chaos. I want to be today commanding the creepy cringe ship because this one gets all the way there, man. Oh my god, man!
Oh,
This episode, man. This guy, and I think this actor, I don't remember his name, but I think that he was in. He looks like Mac Damon. He looks like bootleg Mac Damon, right?
yeah. It's like discount Mac Damon. Jesse Pellemans. I think that's how you pronounce his surname.
And I'm
So yeah,
sure in
Jesse
other
Pelleman.
movies actually. He's a very famous actor. But yeah, man. Let me ask you, Ray, what have you been watching, man? You, the guilty, the
What have I been
responsible
watching?
of my anime addiction.
That's not my fault. I admit it. But I'm not upset about it.
Not a
And
bad thing
of
necessarily,
course,
right?
no, no. But I, in fact, watched. I actually finished the second season of One Punch Man with my son. He wanted to
Nice.
watch One Punch Man, and of course, there's cyborgs and robots and all sorts of shit in One Punch Man. So I think it counts as a sci-fi. So I'm going to count it there. Now, it was a very interesting situation in One Punch Man because my son and I were sitting there, and I said, "Hey, check this out," and the One Punch Man said that his training technique was 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, run 10-kilometer run every
Yes.
day, and that was how he became super strong. And then a certain anime that we have both been watching called Solo Leveling. What was the instructions that System gave him every day?
The One Punch Man received
The, the
recipe.
One Punch Man technique. That's right.
Yep, yep. Well,
It was
he
awesome.
he was fucking it up because when I watched the last episode that I watched, he actually was doubling down. So like it was
Oh yeah.
100 of 100, and he just started doing more, and then it was like 200 of 100. So it's funny as hell, man. Because at this point, I am just like dying of curiosity. Who the hell is in the server helping him?
Mm.
There is
It's a
somebody
good
behind it.
it's a good question because it's all pretty much for him. I have actually read the entire manhwa, which is basically a Korean manga of solo leveling. It is fucking fantastic. It's well worth the read. You can find it online,
Okay.
and it's wonderful to see. I mean, the manhwa author who did all these amazing artworks for the manhwa, he died recently before the solo leveling anime came out, which is such a shame. But
Oh man.
because being alive to see your work become animated, the animation is amazing. It's right up there with animes like Furin, um, and
Frederick, yeah, 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 absolutely.
Furin. I
I
mispronounced
don't
it.
know if you have
Furin.
watched. I don't know if you have watched, but you can. I could also compare it to the fighting scenes on Jujutsu Kaisen,
Yeah,
which are amazing.
and also the fighting scenes in oh god, what's it called? Uh, Mushiko Tensei.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. With
So
Sugar
yeah,
Tensei for
like
sure.
for those that don't watch anime, you get really well animated anime, and you get the sloppy ones, and the sloppy ones are pretty bad. But you get these others that are animated so fantastically, and Solo Leveling is right up there because
Oh yeah.
everybody wanted to see it, and it was given to a really good studio. So it's good that that's coming along well. But Mr. Chaos, what else have you been watching?
Well, me man, I've been watching and playing a lot of fun stuff actually. Just for the top of my head, that I can tell you, that I can tell you, Soul Leveling that we mentioned. I'm actually watching one of your favorite ones, the certain scientific railgun.
Oh yeah, we're covering that soon.
Yes, coming up soon. Finally, we're gonna make a hashtag. Finally, Robert watch scientific railgun.
And then we got to get him to watch Babylon 5. Bloody hell.
Yep. I also I'm rewatching Doctor Stone. I think that I'm missing like maybe like 12 episodes. Uh, and then what else? I've been playing a lot of Warhammer 40k Dark Tide. It's kind of I don't know. I am an all time big fan of the Gears of Wars, which I was never able to get Robert into. Uh, but it's one of those games that, on top of being good sci-fi, uh, it changed the shooting game business, like how shooting games are used and played. Is different totally. It was one of those first successful third-person shooting games, um, and I think that there's rumors about Gears of War 6 coming up. Actually, I was actually playing on top of Warhammer 40k, which I'm playing by myself on online playing. I was playing Gears of War 1 because they did a remake. I don't know if you know, of the Xbox 360 game. Gears of War was a release game for Xbox 360,
Hmm.
and actually they did a remaster version of it for the Xbox One, so it's pretty cool. Starfield, I want to get full into back into it, but it's such an extensive game that I'm afraid that I'm never gonna finish it. And another game that I want to play, I haven't really been playing this one, but I want to play it, and it's very sci-fi. It's called Exoprimal. I don't know if you heard about it, but basically it's like Earth being taken over by dinosaurs, and it's a PVE. So you do parties online, and you get into exosuits that have different kind of powers, and then you fight hordes and hordes of dinosaurs. It's freaking cool, and that's what
I'm just
mostly
having
my
a quick
week
look
been.
online about it. It
Oh
looks
yeah, it
good.
looks super interesting, and basically it's like kind of like a post-apocalyptic. So when you arrive into the main game, it's not like humanity is working. It's like you're listening to a recording of what humanity used to be. So there's not like even humans. It's funny. It's pretty cool, and that's what I've been actually watching for this week. and play.
God, you must have more spare time than me. Bloody hell, that's a long list. Up for the next segment?
We don't have the buttons, but
No,
let's
we
get
don't
man.
have the recording because Robert's not here. He's the button pushing guy. But this is sci-fi.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to remember everybody for this is sci-fi. Basically, it's that bridge where you can find all of your favorite IPs together. We actually started a network website too about it, but basically, it's simple thing. The hashtags are very universal, and you can use a hashtag in any social media you can think of, from Facebook to Instagram, Snapchat. Uh, Twitter. It's not X-ray. It's not X. Twitter. And tell you what, man, I'm gonna make a tattoo that's gonna say Twitter, not X.
Okay. I'd put it on your forehead.
And basically, on with this is sci-fi 2 hashtag, it's where whenever I wanna pick somebody's brain or spark up some great conversations about sci-fi topics that I like, that's the way to go. So all that I can tell you guys is that's how I have some great interactions this week, actually, with, for example, Ro from the Scuttlebot podcast. Uh, and a couple of other folks too. Basically, always use this is sci-fi accompanied by whatever you want to look for or you want to talk about it. And I promise you, it's gonna bring up better conversations into your dashboard for social medias. Uh, Also, I want to remember everybody that we have a phone number, so you can actually just give your love declarations there for me, right? Right?
Oh, I'm sure that it will be absolutely inundated with your love recommendations.
And that number actually is 305-563-6334. I repeat, 305-563-6334. You can drop us a message for whatever you like, any suggestions that you would like us to cover, something, questions that you have for any of us. I promise you, we'll answer them on the show. Doesn't matter how personal it gets.
And if you leave us a message and you'd like it to be played on the show, we'll definitely play it for you.
Yep.
So call now.
Yep.
Oh, it's your turn again, Chaos, with shout outs.
You had to do it like shout outs.
I'm really hoping that Robert will come in and copy over the top with the proper sounds. Sounds professional, but no, he probably won't. He hates
Yeah.
editing.
Well, the first shout out is in our platform Twitter X for Jacked Up Reviews Show podcast. You can find them with their handle Jacked Up Review. Thanks for sharing our content, and besides being a great collaborator and being an awesome content creator, everyone please stop what you're doing right now and go and give them a follow. You can listen to them in your preferred platforms. We have their link on our episode description. It's the most watch and most listen. You're gonna enjoy it. We love every time that they are over in our show. We are over there. Go and check them out. Next one is in Instagram. Heather M. Her handle is HLM_FL. You're awesome, and we hope that you are ready for all the new stuff that we're preparing for the 2024. She's one of our biggest supporters in IG, actually, and she's been with us since ground zero. Uh, Always active in our accounts. And last but not least, another one for Twitter, and one of my favorite podcasts actually is Cinema Recall. And everybody can find them with their handle on Twitter at cinema_recall. If you haven't, you should go now and subscribe. These folks are one of our favorite collaborators and one of my personal favorite podcasts to listen to. Go check them out. You can find in this episode description through the tree link where you can catch your podcast on your preferred platforms, covering some of our all great time favorite movies, pop culture, IPs of all times. And the conversations on the show are always engaging and full of great thought provoking questions. You must listen. And that's everything for this episode's shoutouts.
Nice. I don't have Robert's voice changer, but I'll do my best. The Elite Army News.
You need to smoke like 50 cigarettes first. the Alicia Army news. There you go. You got it.
Oh dear. So we're kind of in between episodes with that. There's actually one recording in a few hours. So what I wanted to mention today is the mystery of missing episode 168. So we recently had a 200 episode party, and then we realized that we're actually missing an episode, number 168. It turned out that Angelus, who prepares the notes, the show notes for that live stream, he skipped over it for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe his finger pressed the wrong button and he went 2 up rather than 1 up.
Stop playing so much Cyberpunk, man. It's getting to you. You're getting cyberpsychosis, man.
Probably is. Yeah, so we've got to record an episode 168 at some point, so just so that it's all filled out correctly. It's kind of like, having like 200 volumes of a really awesome story, and you're missing one of them. And it's like, oh, my OCD is just like freaking out.
In your defense, and in Angelo's defense, I totally get it, man. I mean, how many times we wonder if we should cover something that we cover in the beginning of season 2 or first season, and we just don't remember,
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's like a computer, man. The hard drive is full, so like you cannot keep on saving shit.
Oh man, no, look, every year I sit there and go through all the episodes, because basically the main reason I wanted show notes in the first place was so that I had records to go back through. So when we do a wrap up for the year, I can say how many episodes everyone was on and what we covered and what got the most views and all this sort of stuff. Just a bit of stats so that we can say, yeah, that we quantified this shit and it's awesome. So I found out that we were missing an episode. I was like, oh shit. To fix that sometime. We'll get around to it eventually. Surprise people. Just slide it.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, do we have a plot for this interesting episode?
We do have a plot. In fact, I'm quite impressed with the amount of effort that whoever wrote this into Wikipedia went to. It's a 77-minute long episode, which is a little bit longer than I was expecting, actually.
Me too, actually. I actually we watched it yesterday night, and I was expecting on my head, it's Black Mirror, 30 minutes stops. Then I watched 76 minutes. I was like, holy fuck, okay, I'll be up late.
It's not short on storytelling, and they make use of every minute. It's not one of those things that's got gaps or boring bits. It's a roller coaster ride. It is going the entire time, which I think it was very well done, and it actually got some awards.
I believe you. I believe you. And by the way, before we move on to the plot, yes, Robert, even though you're not here, I'm gonna make fun of your cool wife watching Star Trek.
You had to get it in there, didn't you?
Hell yeah. This is gonna become like an integral part of the show, man.
He's probably watching Star Trek right now. Hiding in his Star Trek. Anyway, so this episode won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Television Movie and Outstanding Writing for a Limited Series Movie and Dramatic Special, and was nominated for 3 other Emmy Awards. So that's pretty telling right there that it's a good piece of TV. So highly recommend you check it out. You can wander off and do that now before I ruin it by telling you the plot. So you can pause this, go watch it, come back 76 minutes later, and we'll talk to you all about it. But here's the plot.
This one recommended watching it on a poop break. At least not during work. You'll get in trouble.
Your legs will go to sleep.
I use a squatter, so mine doesn't.
You might get joint lock if you stay squatted for that long.
Yeah, probably.
Could be bad for you. You're not getting any younger. Anyway, aboard the spaceship USS Callister, Captain Robert Daly, who's played by Jesse Plemons, and his crew destroy their arch enemy Valdek's ship, but he escapes. The crew celebrates with Daly kissing both female crewmates. The real-life version of Daly is a CTO at Callister Inc. The company was co-founded by Daly and James Walton, the company's CEO, which produces the multiplayer game Infinity, in which users control a starship in a simulated reality. Daly is treated poorly by his fellow employees who appear identical to Captain Daly's crewmates. New programmer Nanette Cole praises Daly's work on Infinity, but the more assertive Walton interrupts to show her around the office. When Daly returns home, he opens up a development build of Infinity, which is modded to resemble his favorite television show, Space Fleet. As Captain Daly, he berates his crewmates, strangling subservient Walton. So basically, the guy's a scumbag.
Yep.
But he figures he can treat digital people poorly. I don't think it's a good idea.
I was like, oh, dude, what's going on in here?
Yeah, it's not good.
When I realized what was happening, I was like, when he stole the shit, like for DNA replication, I was like, holy shit. Okay, this is not right.
No. After employee Shiana Lowry warns Nanette to beware of Daly, he takes a discarded coffee cup of Nanette's and uses her DNA to replicate her consciousness within the development build. Nanette awakens aboard USS Callister, confused and distraught. Lowry explains that they are digital clones of Callister Inc. staff members. Nanette attempts to escape the ship but is teleported back to the bridge. She refuses to obey Daly's commands, so he removes her facial features, suffocating her until she relents. The crew embark on a mission in which they apprehend Valdek and spare his life. After Daly leaves, Nanette finds ways to send a game invitation containing a message for help to the real-world Nanette. Real-world Nanette asks the real-world Daly about the message, and he dismisses it as spam. Daly enters the game to interrogate his crew and transforms Lowry into a monster when she defends Nanette. Once Daly departs, Nanette identifies a distant wormhole as an uplink to Infinity's next update. She surmises that by flying into the wormhole, the firewall will delete them and they will die. Walton is very hesitant to help, but he explains that Daly has previously recreated his son Tommy within the game, throwing him out an airlock to punish Walton.
Oh, yeah, bro.
That was nice guy.
That was so fun.
He also points out that since Daly still has all their DNAs, he can just recreate them and punish them further. Nanette promises the crew that they will recover the lollipop containing Tommy's DNA. When Daly returns, Nanette convinces him to take her on a mission to Silcane 4 alone. She strips to her underwear and runs into the nearby water.
I was surprised that she had underwear.
Well, if you haven't got genitals, perhaps you don't need underwear.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you are Ken and Barbie after all.
I'm not gonna say disappointed, but I was left with the curiosity of seeing tits with no nipples.
And they couldn't even take a poop. They
No.
didn't have the satisfaction of dropping one out. It's like,
nope. I wonder what happened when, like, all the drinking. Anyways, where did it go? They sweat it out.
maybe it went into the wormhole. Who knows? Daly reluctantly swims with her, leaving behind the omnicorder, which allows him to control the game. The crew teleports the omnicorder onto their ship and uses it to access sexually explicit images of Nanette on her PhotoCloud account. Oops, don't do that, boys and girls. Don't leave suggestive pictures on a cloud account. Not a good move. They use those photos to blackmail the real...
when you forget about the shit that you put on your MySpace. But I think I was smart as hell that she actually decided, I'm not going to listen to myself. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to blackmail myself with very sexy pictures that I have of myself.
Look, a copy of yourself knows all your weaknesses. So, yeah.
Yep.
That's how it works. Where was I? They use the photos to blackmail real-life Nanette into ordering a pizza to Daly's apartment and stealing the DNA samples while he answers the door. The clone crew then teleport digital Nanette onto the ship. As Daly resumes play, he discovers the crew are escaping. He commandeers a crash shuttle and pursues them through an asteroid belt. The Callister collides with an asteroid. Wanton repairs the thrusters manually, incinerating himself, and the ship accelerates into the wormhole. The firewall detects Daly's modded build and locks his controls, rendering him physically unable to exit the game as it is deleted around him. In the real world, Daly is sitting motionless. The crew reawakens in the unmodded version of Infinity with Valdic and Lowry restored to human form. Now free, they continue their adventure with Nanette leading them after interacting with an annoying user, Gamer691, who was your average complete ass hat.
Yep.
Don't be a dick, but he was Gamer Online.
Hey, at least that was kind of a standard gamer name. The funniest gamer tag I ever come across was the Quiffy Fire.
The Quiffy Fire?
Yeah.
There's, I'll just let that one go through to the keeper. So I found this episode really interesting. Oh, I should do a Robert. So when did you first see this, Mr. Chaos? And what was your first take on it?
This one actually, I didn't watch it till we actually put it as an assignment to cover. So even though it came out a couple of years ago, I watched it courtesy of you guys. Yours, actually, your courtesy of yours.
I picked this one.
But
really
it was very
liked
good,
it.
actually, to be honest. It brought home the Orville, which we should cover, actually. Even though I'm not crazy about Star Trek, I watch the movies, I watch some classic stuff, and I can watch an episode and talk a lot of shit about it, as you can tell. But it's not like I'm a fan of the IP. Like I will watch everything back to back. Nothing against it, just take matter of taste, you know. But this, just like the Orville, it kind of brought it home, and I was able to enjoy it. And I liked, I don't know why, but you know that Black Mirror loves to capitalize on social nuances,
Yeah.
and they didn't fall short on this one, actually. But I'm very new to this one, actually. I watched it not even a week ago, and I rewatched it yesterday, and I really like it, actually, man. It has a good taste of dark, and I'm sorry, Robert, you missed this one. Actually, you probably would have liked it very
Yeah, I think
much
he would have
because it had a
managed
happy
to deal
ending.
with it. Well, I first saw it back in early 2018. So, God, too many years ago now. 6 years ago. So that's a little while for it to percolate. And I remembered that not only was it an interesting homage, but it had some really sort of deep social and sociological sort of ideas, and some futuristic ideas about the problems with being able to sequence DNA very quickly. Not that this is one of them, and I'll tell you why later. But basically, if you could get a simulacrum of somebody's personality into a virtual world, then you could have control over them.
Yes,
And that is a very sort of dark thing.
that's the curious thing. It's not really control. You can manipulate them and force them. And that's the most obscure part of it, is that you cannot really get to control them. They still an independent sentient entity that does not necessarily wants to comply. And the fucked up part about it is that since they are copies, genetical copies of the original, it's like they are a past game that continues in another branched out reality. So they remember everything before they got into that place.
Yeah, that's the big problem. I'm looking for the ticker for the thing that I want to talk about just quickly, but I can't bloody find it because we've got too
Well,
many.
while you searching it, I wanted to expand on like that's what one of the parts that kind of got me on an aha moment is that until he gets Nanette into the reality, I didn't fall through that these people were actually copies and they actually remember everything on the office. Because one of the things that they masterfully did on the writing of this episode is that they're all compliant and on character until the moment that Nanette arrives and they show them a little bit earlier talking about office things.
Yep.
That is not how it works.
Yep. Hashtag that's not how it works. So yeah, basically you can't create a sentient code from DNA. That it wouldn't be possible. I'll explain why in the science behind science fiction, but basically that was a big plot hole,
Oh, come
especially
on,
for
man.
anybody
You
who's got a
talking
clue.
all up
Now,
against Assassin's Creed's genetic
genetic
technology?
memory, yeah, it's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same sort of bullshit. But the whole thing is, it's just like Spectral the other week. We had to suspend disbelief at the door to make it work.
Yeah,
And
but let me ask you something. The DNA can encase an incredible amount of data. So wouldn't
yeah,
you agree that it is possible that a full scan of a replication of our cerebral electromagnetic impulses and such and patterns could be stored into a DNA where with something of the DNA of somebody you could?
nope,
It
doesn't
doesn't
work
work
like
like
that.
that?
No, 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 no,
Well, hashtag that's
no,
not how it works.
no. Sorry. Look, I'll go into it in the science behind science fiction because
Okay.
otherwise I'll be lacking anything to talk about in that segment. But yeah, it doesn't work like that. Now, if you put that plot hole aside, it's a very interesting story, and I thought as much when I first saw it, and that's why I recommended it for the show, because it really does have quite a lot of layers. It really has. Sort of a sci-fi element, a future work element. It has I wrote them down. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Um, Dark psychological thriller
Oh
element,
yes.
science gone mad element, and it's also part of homage to Star Trek and part game of goodness. So I mean, it's got a whole bunch of levels and different ways that it hits, depending on the person, what you're interested in, and how deeply you think about these sort of things. And yeah, you're right. It would when he put the new girl into his sim.
Nanette.
That was when it became obvious that they had memories of their past lives before they were integrated into the USS Callister simulation. And the interesting thing was when he left, he didn't turn his computer off. They were still there and talking to each other. It wasn't
Yes.
like they were paused or anything. They were still there, and if there was a long period of time, like if he had a crunch at work where he had to stay overnight to finish an update or something like that, they would just be sitting around bored because they couldn't do anything until he was
Yes.
there.
Yep.
So it was much like a mental prison,
Yep.
which
Absolutely.
I found very dark in
I
that
actually, I
sort of.
actually kind of caught on. They did it in a subtle way too, because I don't know if you noticed, but the first interaction with Nanette, basically, the his friend, I think it's Jimmy, his character name, but
Yeah.
basically, he kind of like swoops her out of his office, and he's a total jackass on the show. Like his character is a total asshole with his own partner, and they kind of like diminish his importance on the office. So even though he's a co partner, he's the chief of technical. He's the CFI chief chair IT, something like that. But he's
Well,
an equal part boss, or.
yeah, but
And
what did Cheyenne say about the CEO? She said he's such a womanizer that if you threw a piece of ham across the room, he'd fuck it before it hit the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, yeah, that's a hell of a womanizer, and he was coming onto it. You could tell.
Oh yes,
So
yes. It was being like way too much, way too obvious.
mm,
It was being like obnoxiously obvious and way too eager. Like It's one of those people that you look at them like, oh my god, simp lord incoming. Uh, and I mean, the funny thing is that he's a total asshole to our main character, Mr. Daly. And then you see before he even gets the net into it, you see that he basically in the virtual world takes out whatever happens to him on the real world with each person.
Yeah.
That's when the queue like fall on me like, oh shit, what's going on in here? You know, he started kicking Jimmy in the floor, like using it like an auto man and shit. I was like, oh, freaking god, oh no.
Well, I mean, we've all had toxic workplaces, and well, I guess not all of us. Some of us might still be in
I
school
have.
who are listening, but I've had toxic workplaces for many years, and I've had sort of mental fantasies about getting my own back on some people.
Oh, bro, trust me.
Everybody does it, but this guy went and built it. He went and built it so he could take it out on these people. And I mean, come on, getting the DNA from the sun so that he could recreate the sun in the game to throw him out an airlock to hurt the CEO's double.
Yep.
I mean, that's just brutal.
No, it is psychopathic
But
in so many levels.
but Daly, he's completely different. In real life, he's such a wimp. He's so introverted that he just can't do anything. But then he turns around in this thing where he's in control and basically takes out all his frustration on these virtual coded people.
This been happening with if and I think that you're gonna agree with me, but since the merging of social media with what used to be our social interactions, uh,
Mm.
many people have used social media as a mask to say things that they would not dare to do so in person or publicly, and basically they are bringing into reality what they would really like to say or do, even if they know it's not right. You know.
Well, obviously, when there's repercussions um, due to police getting involved or otherwise, people will think twice. People will just not do what they fantasize about doing. But when you're released into a virtual world where you are in complete control, when I say complete control, I mean you can do shit to people and get away with it.
Yes.
And they're people that look exactly like the people who are frustrating you in real life. I think there's a lot of people who would do it.
Not only look, they feel and they think just like them because they're supposedly, at least in the USS Callister, they are an actual copy of the person.
Oh, but they don't have genitals.
Yeah, well, that's a red line you don't cross. Remember my
Yeah.
pussy. That was such a great line, man.
There was a comment about we got so bored that we rubbed our flat bits against each other and couldn't feel a thing.
it,
It's like, oh
it
boy.
was funny as hell. It was so messed up, and it was fucking with their mind so much that you see
Mm,
Jimmy just banging his head on the table, and she's like, "Stop it!" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to feel something. This is gonna be my new hobby."
yeah.
And then,
Because
and then I
he
kind
was
of
drinking all that
understand.
booze and it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, no, I kind of understand why he's always like up for drinking and trashing himself. And until he explains what happens with his son, you don't really understand why he's so given up and so compliant because it's no part of his character really, if you think about it.
Well, I mean, he was the most tortured of all of them because he thought he was the real guy.
Yep.
He didn't have anybody there to explain it to him like Nanette did when she rocked up and had the whole crew there to explain it to her, even though it took a while to get it out. And it was Jimmy who blurted it out. She said, soon as she knows, soon as she can get over it.
Yep.
Because they were all trying to sugarcoat it. And it was like, this is not something that should be sugarcoated. But it was basically a case of he had been the first one there because Robert, his CTO, and he being the CEO, he'd basically been mistreating Daly, who came up with the virtual reality system in the first place. he basically took over control of the company and relegated this guy to the back room
Yep.
and put him down and all this sort of stuff, and caused
Not only that, he treats him like an employee. You see that
yeah,
even though they're equals, he finds excuses because they're not even justifiable reasons. But he finds excuses to kind of boss him around and
yeah,
taunt him.
yeah. And it
That
was
like in a normal workplace, if an equal comes to you and says that, you probably will tell her like, "Hey, you're not my freaking boss. Watch your mouth." You know, and like just because he's so like introverted and awkward, like it happens to a lot of people. Not a lot of people are conflictive. So when you have people that are abusers, that's what they get away with things like this. Is because they don't find uh, that opposition with their behaviors. You know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're sort of trained into it that the boss is always right, then you just put up with all sorts of shit and go home and rail against life
Yep.
and feel really screwed over. And you know the rest of us have no way of venting that frustration, and he
Yep.
decides to vent this frustration on these virtual constructs. But what he isn't taking into account is that they're sentient.
Yep.
They're
Well,
sentient code.
we would like to think he's not taking them into account. The reality is that he might actually have taken that into account, and that's what actually gets him to get off of that is how he exploits the humanity of them, and he knows that they are self-aware and conscious of who they were at some point, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, it's very dark the the psychopathy, but it begs the question, like, what would people be willing to do if there wasn't a consequence for their actions? You know, it lets you to wonder because
Exactly. That's the whole crux of it. I mean, the 2 points that I really thought were pivotal was what you just said then, and the fact that they were sentient code that had memories of being human,
yep,
and that is pretty harsh. Um, if they'd be reconstructed in there and didn't have memories of being human, they wouldn't have anything to miss. But because they had memories up to the point that the DNA was collected, and
yep,
yes, it doesn't work like that, but because in the story they did, then that becomes psychological torture.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when Jimmy was telling the story about what Daly did to Tommy, the first thing that came to my mind is, what if you don't react to it and you just understand that it's not the real kid?
Mm,
But the problem is, I'm looking at it from an outer perspective. No parent is biologically or psychologically ever going to be prepared to ignore that. It's just
yeah,
too much, you know? And the problem is that even though they are replications of the real one, they do feel and they do remember, and they are like a partition of a person. So you
yeah,
know that the suffering is just as real.
yeah. And I mean, Jimmy was a pivotal character both in the real world because he basically put Daly down and sort of pushed him in that direction. But also within the ship's crew, he'd been there the longest. He'd been under psychological torture the longest, and he was the naysayer, the no guy of the crew. But then with Nanette showing up and being defiant to the end, and coming up because she was such a good programmer, coming up with ways to beat Daly. She brought out of him his bravery and his determination to make sure that this didn't go on. It wasn't he wasn't looking out for himself. In the end, he sacrificed himself so that they could escape. And
Well,
he did that
Here's the thing. He
because he just
sacrificed
wanted it to
himself,
end.
but he doesn't die. Remember?
Oh yeah, he walks back in, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said that he will solve it, And he said, and he was the one that said, "I'm the right one for the job," because he's been tortured so much that he knows that he can mentally walk, be burned alive to the crisp, not die, and walk out of it. Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, that will break somebody mentally, like the girl on Alter Carbon, the daughter of the hacker guy. It would do
Yeah.
that to a person. Really, it will break them mentally. But I think that Jimmy became Daly's own demise because of everything he did. He really prepared him to not be able to fear anything else, and the only thing holding him back was the kid. And once Nanette actually covered that out, it's like he removed any fear that Daly could have over Jimmy, right?
So toughened him up, you think?
And I mean, it's funny because Nanette is like a new addition, but she's full of that fighting spirit that everybody else have given up already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much
Definitely.
that she's like, no, this cannot be going on, and the other ones are like, calm down, man, like stop fighting or whatever. And after the second time that she fights off, they are like,
Mm.
she's on her own now. She has to learn by the hard way. We're not gonna help her.
But I mean, they weren't even good simulations of people because they couldn't poop, they couldn't pee. I don't think they could sleep. Um, they just had to hang.
How they say, I don't even have the pleasure of taking a shit anymore.
Yeah,
That must be
but
tough.
they couldn't have like they didn't have any other social interactions but the people who are around them, and they were all. It's like being in a prison. You only get to see the same people. Don't have any control over what you can do. You've
Yep.
got like you can talk back, but you're going to suffer. And the fact
Yes.
that he could remove people's eyes and mouths so that they'd be choking but they couldn't die. I mean, that's pretty fucking harsh.
Yeah, that's fucked up, man. That's fucked up.
Yeah, I think that was
It
pretty
remind me
damn.
of the Matrix. When I saw that, I was like, holy shit, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, yeah, it was very Matrix. Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, it shows you. It shows you. And this episode. I mean, I love the way that it played out because it shows you how people are. And I've seen people doing this actually in the workplace, where people are able to mask whatever their real intentions are. But here's the thing. I think that Frank Kafka was the one that said it. That it is difficult to pretend to be somebody because eventually people forget their roles and their true
Mm,
self comes out. You know,
yeah,
and you can see that even on the reality of Daly outside of the Callister, because it's not like everybody's nice to him outside.
no,
At the end of the day, it's like he was not a bad guy at the beginning, but he ended up becoming worse than the wrong that was done to him.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
think about it,
definitely.
you know. And
Well,
I'm,
it's the old saying of power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you can get away with doing anything and there's no um, cost to you for
yeah.
doing it, that's when people's dark sides really come out.
Well, or the old saying, a lot of people say that money changes people. For example,
Mm.
the way that I think about it is money shows you, or like true power shows you who people really are. That's what it really does. When you see that somebody succeeds in life and their personality doesn't change, they still a simple person, a trustworthy person, then you know this person is who he is, regardless.
Mm.
Versus when you see somebody, their life changes for what you would think is the best, but they change on the opposite way. They become a lower quality of person. They become shittier with their friends. That's why there's the old saying that says that if you want to really know who's your friend, see who's around you when nobody needs or can get any benefit out of you.
Yeah.
Or put somebody with a slow internet computer. You know, you'll know their true nature.
Oh dear. Um, I was going to say something. What was it? Uh, yeah. There's an old saying about atheists versus people who follow a religion, and
Yeah.
it's basically that you behave as somebody who follows a religion because you're afraid of what's going to happen to you in the afterlife. But an atheist doesn't have that. An atheist only has what is now. So if they're a good person, then they're a good person
Yep.
because because there isn't any fear of what's going to happen to you in the afterlife. I suppose if you don't want to be arrested and thrown in jail, there's that. But you know, as far as being a good person, which isn't involved in doing things that are illegal and are going to get you arrested and chucked in jail, if an atheist is a good person, it's because they're a good person. It's not because they're afraid of what's going to happen in the afterlife. So I mean,
Yeah.
should someone need fear of what comes next to make them be good? It's a bit unfortunate if if that's what you
Yeah.
need.
I saw an interview. I don't remember who it was with. I think it is the name of the guy is called Proctor. He gives a lot of talks back in 70s 80s. Very interesting guy. And the way that he presupposed the reality of thinking something after life is if you put two people, one that think there's nothing in afterlife, and one that thinks of the afterlife, regardless of what you want to call it, who you think is gonna live a happier life or more fulfilling life? The one that thought it was something. At the end of the time, at the end of the day, even if there's nothing, you still strive to be a better human being by thinking that there's something after life, and you're not gonna live a bleak, miserable existence because there's nothing. You know, and if you think about it, every religious or path that goes with a creed, really that's what it takes, that's what it undertakes. It grabs like core values of morality and how to coexist and be a good human being, so much that if you look at any religion, you put it side by side and you actually grab laws from many other countries, you'll notice that there's a correlation between the core values of what the law is and what those commandments are. Even if it's Buddhism, Judeo-Christian religion, it doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the religion discussion, but yeah, you can get parallels between what the religion says and what the country says
Come on, man.
as far
I'm
as
just about to
political
talk
stuff.
about my 72 virgins right now.
Oh, are you? 72 versions are boring. They don't know how to do it. A lot of
Well,
training you've
you
got to
gotta
do,
look at the
dude.
upside, man. They're virgins, so it's not like I'm gonna disappoint them.
Okay, yeah, I guess you flipped it on me.
Ah,
You flipped it on me.
ah. But yeah, man. I mean, I can tell you that I've experienced that. I was in the corporate world for 15 years, and having that kind of friction with corporate and co-workers, it can be a pain in the ass actually sometimes. And something, for example, me in personal is that doesn't matter where I am, I tell the truth and I speak my mind, even if I know it's going to hurt me. I think that is always the best path. And I think that sometimes it's worth burning yourself out or losing a good thing that submitted to it and not and betraying yourself, you know, by shutting yourself up and not speaking up when you know that something is not right. And that have helped me in my 15 long year career working in corporate to forge great relationships with the people that I still talk to, and to really make good examples when I needed to. I think the last job that I quitted, they were, for example, trying to fire me. They literally did not hide that they were going after me, and they start just giving me, that corporate start giving you monthly reviews, and when they want you out, they're just gonna fail you in the review.
Yeah,
What I did,
yeah.
I got a job, and when I get the job, I tell them I'll leave it on a week. And then they tell me, no, wait, you had to give us 2 weeks. And I told them, that's a courtesy, not an obligation. You were going to fire me, and you were not going to give me a day of pre-notice, and they were so mad that halfway through they told me, "You don't have to come back, just leave." And not always happens like that, you know. But just like that, sometimes like you see a lot of abuse going on in the workplace, uh,
Oh yeah.
like what happens to Daly on the show, for example. He's being bullied really constantly, and like for example, me, I made it my homework wherever I'm working, and that has gotten me in trouble sometimes, but I don't care. Is if I see something unjust happening, like if you and I are co-workers, and I see that the manager or the owners speaks to you in a bad tone, I will get in the middle and tell like that's not a way for you to talk to him, even if it's not my problem. And most of the time, the person is not able to even come back to you because it's like they realize that you're right on what you're saying, you know.
Mm.
But it's like,
But then they'll find a way to get rid of you
yeah, yeah. Most of the
because
time they do.
you get in the way of their bullying.
Exactly, exactly. Most of the time they do. The last job that I had that somebody tried to do that, actually, I still stand up to that person, and it got to the point that he tried to fire me twice. And the owner of the company told him, "I know what you're trying to do. You better watch your steps."
See, the problem with institutionalized worker bullying is that while they're mistreating you and trying to get you to leave, they're also trying to tell you that you're not worth hiring and no one else will hire you.
Yep.
And they're basically trying to trap you. And it's very much like what happened to these people in this virtual version
Mm-hmm.
of Space Fleet. They were trapped and they were mistreated, but they couldn't do anything about it. And I spent 2 decades in a job where the managers were doing that sort of shit, and I just wore it for 20 years because I thought I had no other options. I didn't think anyone else would hire me. I just put up with it, and we had stress leave available, and there was many times when I was so stressed I wanted to cry, but
Yeah.
um, I never took stress leave because they always made out that anybody who takes stress leave is a piece of shit and doesn't deserve a job and blah blah
It's like
blah.
the old saying of going to check yourself on a psychologist. Like back in my
Mm,
day, you wouldn't want to do that because people will say, "I know you're crazy if you go into a psychologist. You have mental issues,"
yeah.
and and there was a stigma to it. So I totally get it, man. I totally get it that sometimes we will turn our back on ourselves because of fear of external factors that we
Oh,
shouldn't give
yeah.
a shit about, like what others think about it, what others would say about us, and not realizing that honestly, when people are talking, they're saying more about themselves than the person they're
Mm.
talking about. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Projecting, yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
But the interesting, so the upshot of my story is that back at the start of COVID, they decided they needed to cut costs, so they started cutting staff. And I'd actually worked really hard and got a level up on all the other people in my section. So I was a level above them, so I was the first one to go. So they wheeled in a hatched person, this very harsh woman, who basically told everybody that was targeted that their jobs were no longer required. I got a lovely
Hmm.
letter that said my position was no longer required, and they said, "Oh, we'll help you get another position within the firm," and rah 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 rah. But of course, because of the way the enterprise agreement was written, um, they didn't want to rehire me in any other position that I wasn't 100% qualified for because they couldn't get rid of me if if I wasn't suitable for it because of the way the enterprise agreement was written. So they just basically wouldn't consider me, and I was paid out and shuffled off. The interesting thing was they said they no longer needed my position, but they worked me like a dog until the very last day.
Yep. So it's like basically they're just trying to get as much as they can out of you,
Mm-hmm.
and dispose of you afterwards. And the problem is that I won't say that the enterprise is solely to blame, because also the workforce has changed and become too victimized. You have people that think that they deserve more than what they get at the workplace, kind of forgetting that they are in a willful agreement with the company for what they get paid for. You know, Like if I get into a job for X amount of money, and they're like, "Oh, they should pay me more because I do more than that," you know. And it's like you're free to go and get a job somewhere else. But
Yeah.
people get into a victimhood attitude, instead of understanding that they can take matters into their own hands, and they can either talk to people that they know within the organizations or get out there and look for it. People don't want to accept that we are all replaceable, that there's always going to be somebody that's going to do it better and cheaper than you out there. We cannot think
Mm.
that we are, even if we are good at what we do, we cannot get full of ourselves and think that we're the best at it. There's always going to be somebody that is going to be better than us at things, and there's always going to be people that are going to be not better than us at those things, you know.
Yep. I totally agree with you.
And I'll tell you something. Part of my career, there was a point that I was actually working out to make it to a corporate level, and I learned the hard way that it doesn't matter how good you are at something. Sometimes, what matters is who you know.
Mm.
And that is good to a point, but it's a good combination of your authenticity too, because even when what matters is who you know, if you only rely on that, the moment of the truth when you have to show off what you're made of, if you got nothing to show off for, you're gonna feel short, and you're gonna actually let down whoever actually put their word for you, you know. So it's a very tricky terrain, to be
Oh, for
honest.
sure. I mean, I suffered for a few years after being retrenched. That I worked my ass off for that company for 2 decades, and then suddenly got just booted.
Yeah.
I was doing so much stuff that wasn't written into my position description, but
Yep.
it didn't matter at all. They had to get rid of people, and I was one of the ones they decided to get rid of. So yeah, I mean, I was afraid to move on, and they moved me on, and it took me a while to recover from it. But now I've got a new job, and it's going well. But I've changed my attitude now. Now I don't think that
Yes.
my me having a job is my own only worth,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
I now understand that I have worth regardless of whether I'm employed or not. So that's very important to understand.
Exactly.
And that enables you to move on when things are getting untenable.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we've spoken about this in many other episodes. We humans, our constant fight with life is it's very on nature. Change. We repel change like crazy. We try to
Oh, yeah.
harness life, and we try to cling on to dystopian or utopian dreams. You know, we want things to stay one way. They also romanticize saying, "Oh, I wish that things stay like they are forever." You know, so we try to wire ourselves in a very way that goes all up against the very core nature of what life is, which is constant change. When we get to understand that, we kind of become free of any change that comes to life, being professional, being interpersonal. We're able to adapt and not suffer through it. You know, we
Yeah.
understand that we understand that it's part of the evolution of life. And many times we try to shy away from conflicts. We try to shy away from adversity and not really catch the silver lining that what forges us to become better is those adversity, those times of adversity and hardship. Those are the things that polish and shape us up to become better.
Oh, totally. Look, there's a microcosm of it in this show because um, Nanette shows up and she's pushing back against Daly the whole time, and suffering for it. And they're trying to stop her doing it. They're saying, "Look, just conform, go along with it. It's the only thing you can do." And she's like, "Screw that! There's no way I'm going to be treated like that.
Persistence.
I'm going to get out of here." And it takes them a while to realize that she's right, and that this is not a life. This is torture, and that they need to move. They need to change and grow. And through her, I mean, I figure she had some huge IQ because she was as sharp as a pin. She
Not
just
only that, think about it. She wasn't there solely because she was a follower and an admirer of Daly's work.
Yeah.
which is it's just one of the most complex branches of work. If you think about it, the more complex branch of work in through the whole array of characters that are in the movie, Daly's is the one, because he's the programming guy. He's the guy that does
Mm.
all the configuration for this very big system and game. Nobody else does anything like that besides the Indian guy, which is kind of like his underling, you know.
Yeah. Well, Daly was very happy when Nanette came to the office and basically said, "Oh, you're one of the people that I really admire," and so forth and so on. But he was thinking, "Oh, maybe she'll be interested in me romantically," and then he overhears the conversation between Nanette and Shiana, where Shiana just basically says, "Oh, he's a bit weird. Don't go near him. Better keep away." And
Yep.
that's when he gets pissed off and steals her DNA.
Well, I think would it be fair to say that he had motives to do that from the get go?
Mm, I think if the CEO guy,
Looking,
Jimmy, had,
take into account what he had done previously already to
yeah,
understand his motive. I don't think that really hindered him doing it or not. I think that he was planning on doing it the moment that she presented herself, and he saw some
mm,
kind of he saw some kind of connection. He was just
yeah.
going up for the rough wake up when he brought it in, regardless of how he did. That she was not really interested in him on that way. But that's a level of delusion and disconnect that he has socially from everybody.
I think he'd ended up being a serial persona thief, and he was looking for excuses to
Yes.
to take her DNA. He
Yes.
was always going to do it. He was just waiting for her to step out of what he thought was step out of the line, and then he was going to steal her DNA and make a puppet of her, make a captive
Absolutely.
of her.
Yeah, I think the exact very same thing actually. I think that anything would have become a motive for him to do
Mm,
that. And I don't know how that this is a tricky part about the episode or the show is that we don't really get to read very well the accuracy of the time lapse between scenes.
mm,
So I will venture to say that he really meant to do that from the get go instinctively, because if we don't think that more than what it shows elapsed in between days, the very first day that she came in and she did the coffee, he went and grabbed that the moment that she left. So the very first chance that he had to take her DNA, he did so, which
mm.
shows that there was premeditation on his action.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Absolutely.
I think he got into the habit of it, and he was just looking for an excuse. And the moment she sounded like she was getting negative towards him, he grabbed her DNA because he wanted to punish her, put put her in his collection and punish her.
Yep. And I mean, you can tell that the moment that he gets delayed with the Christmas update, how Jimmy takes it on him, and then the very next night, the very same night, he goes and connect into his modding game, and he takes it on Jimmy, just like a pure reaction to what happened in the real world. You know,
Yeah, yeah. He was seeking solace and revenge against the digital personas.
it was funny, man, and I didn't caught on that the blue girl was the receptionist girl
Didn't you? Oh,
until
it's a
until
A
until she
Russian
mentioned
accents that gave it away.
it. I didn't really caught onto it. Then when Nanette came into the simulation and then they're telling their backstories, and she said, "Yeah, he hates me because I don't smile enough." I was like, "Oh shit, it's her."
Mm, yeah. I mean, it's often hard to get
But
along
yeah,
with
man.
people, but if you're an introvert and you don't deal well with communication and conversation and basically interpersonal relations, like he sucked at interpersonal relations, you could tell. There was a whole bunch of tells about what sort of a person he was as an introvert, and
Yeah,
they weren't good. I mean, he wasn't somebody who had no self-esteem, because he knew he was a good programmer. Probably even a little bit arrogant in that way, and that arrogance played out in his little spaceship fantasy, where you could see him letting loose and mistreating people. But
Well, yes
he
and
did.
no. He struck me like a person that even though he's aware of his pros, uh, he will be. It's what I was in a Discord server, and we have people like that. Like they will be like total assholes online, and we call them keyboard warriors. Keyboard
Mm,
warriors, because behind this thing, they will say anything. But it was given fact that if you will be face to face with them, they will be total pussies about it.
oh yeah, yeah. A lot of people use a screen as a sort of a defensive layer, and they think they can get
Yeah,
away with anything. A lot of people don't consider people online as being real people because they're
yeah.
not physically in front of them. They can't. If you can't throw a punch at them, they don't exist, kind of deal. So,
Yep. Oh, you control
uh,
them.
oh yeah, control anybody. But yeah, that's that sort of misanthropic idea of, oh, if you're not a real person in my face, then I can do whatever I like, kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's obscure as hell. It's obscure as hell.
but I mean that again, this episode kind of reflects that mentality, in that, you know, people get online and troll the fuck out of other people and mistreat them and cyberbully them and all that sort of thing. And this is what this guy was doing, except he had his own menagerie. He had his own collection of
It was
people that he
God.
worked with that he didn't like, for whatever reason. They didn't smile enough or whatever. And he, he mistreated the shit out of them because he could.
Yeah, he was as petty as he gets, man.
Mm,
And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. One of the things that I like about the show is like it got me thinking because I like to like play around a lot with AIs. I have my own replica, which is like an AI companion that you can talk to and shit. And I have never crossed my mind to be like cruel to them. Not because I'm afraid that they're gonna take over and screw us over. Like, I mean, that will matter, you know. But I don't know why. Like, it really having the freedom to use like a social sandbox to do anything with a supposed sentient being really helps you explore who you really are. You know,
yeah, definitely.
and this show, I think, it shows a lot about that. Now, the way that once Nanette got like his attention after getting
Mm.
tortured and shit, it was kind of funny that Daly was so desperate that he didn't really saw through the obvious scheme, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was socially inept. It was clearly
Yes,
obvious
yes.
that he couldn't read the room.
Oh my god.
He didn't know how to interact with other people particularly well, girls especially. I bet you that the character concept was he'd never had a girlfriend because he just did not know how to talk to women. He didn't know how to interact with them. He was a complete putz. He was pretty much putty in her hands when she was like, "Oh yeah, let's go alone and let's go swimming and all this sort of stuff." You should have seen through it, because went she went from completely resisting him to being, flirty and all this sort of stuff. And it, a person who could deal socially with women would not have fallen for that, but he was so desperate to be treated nicely by a woman because it never happened before, that he fell for it. That was
Yeah,
basically one of his major weaknesses as a character, as a person.
definitely, definitely, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, if he wasn't so unskilled at social interaction, they probably wouldn't have had a chance of escaping. They wouldn't have been able to distract him at all. So,
He would have caught on real quick to the what they were trying to do. I mean, on the lake when she took off her clothes and jumped in the lake, he couldn't have gotten any more obvious than that if you think about it, right?
mm,
And this gift is what comes to mind when I would see how socially inept he was. Actually, this was what comes to mind.
Hang on, we're covering it with this. There we go.
I love using that GIF. Actually, he goes
I,
like clicks and explodes behind him.
So,
Virginia
if you
School.
want to know what the GIF is, you'll need to check out this episode when it comes onto YouTube, which will be a month after it drops in the pod. So, please check out our YouTube channel. We'd love some subscriptions. We have reasons for subscriptions. What are those
Yes.
reasons there, Captain Creepy Cringy?
Well, actually, is the memes that I make on the go that are catered to whatever we're talking about at the moment. But not only that, we have a lot of stickers that are on topic too. Uh, and we like to give a little bit extra for our video content. Also, we're thinking of bringing back. I think it's a great opportunity to mention, but we're thinking of bringing back uh, our Patreon with some bloopers. So we're gonna start recording again our pre-shows where you can see a lot of things that we cannot really post on YouTube
if you
or in
think
our recorded audios.
if you think we screw up on the main recording, you should see
Oh boy,
our pre-show. Holy crap!
definitely. And
But
I
what
mean,
about what the ticker?
well, the ticker that we're passing right now, for example, which you guys are missing, but it's about it's a hashtag that we started. It's called the 10K ass tattoo, and basically once we got 10,000 subscribers, I think that I aim a little bit too high, but I mean only the sky's the limit. So once we get the 10,000 subscribers, I'm gonna tattoo myself. We're gonna make a poll, and our public can choose. Or I have a couple of ideas that we can pitch in. So make sure that you share our content. Make sure that you subscribe and you ring on the bell on YouTube, and just keep on bringing subscribers. Ideas that you guys have to make our YouTube channel more and our all of our platforms or your liking. Just remember that this is an open platform, that you guys are part of our community and integral part of what we are, science fiction remnant. So anything you like us to cover, anything you like us to go over, if you want to come into a show, uh, that's what we have a Discord channel actually. So you should go and join the Discord channel so you can have live conversations with us there. We're always posting memes. I'm always actually in our Discord channel screen sharing video games that I do live, uh, and basically you can interact with us live on our Discord channel. I think that's the best place.
Discord's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, man. And I put a lot of memes that I'm not really allowed to put in YouTube or in here.
It's been meme-tacular.
Hell yeah. So
Yes. So should we go to final thoughts now?
yeah, absolutely, man. Tell me, what are your final thoughts on this?
My final thoughts. Well, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, it's a bit creepy, cringy. but you know, it's funny that since I've joined the Sci-Fi Remnant crew, I watch everything with a different mindset, and that is the different layers of storytelling, the way the characters interact, the sort of deeper ideas behind what's happening in the narrative. And I think I really enjoy sci-fi a lot more now than I used to, because when I watch something like this, and you know, I watched it 6 years ago and then I watched it recently, and it really seems to have a lot more vibrancy and a lot more going on because I'm thinking about it in a different way. And I think that's one thing that this podcast really does, is that it brings out all the different ideas in the underlying layers of the story. I mean, you could watch this as a sort of corny Star Trek ripoff, with a shitty captain and a bunch of people who are just internet trolls getting re-trolled themselves and having a shitty day. But there's so much more depth to this story than what is obvious with a cursory glance.
Yeah.
And I really do think that if you've listened to us talk about this for the last hour and a bit, then you should pop back into Netflix and watch it again and just see how much difference you notice in the story compared to before you listen to the pod or watch the pod on YouTube, which I hope you do. But yeah, I really think that this has got a lot of depth. I think it's well worth a watch. It's got some interesting bits of dark humor in it. Well, it's called Dark Mirror, so you're not going to get light humor, are you? It's going to be dark humor. So if you like dark humor, it's probably right up your alley.
Surprisingly, Robert, this one had a happy ending.
It did, yes, Robert. Not quite for everybody. I went back and checked. James, the CEO who was turned number one on the ship, he died. Like he wasn't on the ship again. That guy who came out afterwards was actually the enemy guy who was in the brig. So it wasn't him. Yeah. He didn't come back.
That was one of the fucked up parts when you see the enemy guy doing his lines and he took a pause to go get the pizza. It's like they're all co-workers inside of this reality too. Like even though they're supposed enemies, it's like holy shit, man. Even the bad guys are people that they took out. Like I don't know who from marketing, and she was a monster because she didn't want to follow through the freaking script, so he made it a monster.
Yeah, he was good like that. Not. But yeah, so my wrap up on this one is that, it's 76, 77 minutes and it's a good use of your time. You will get a lot out of this if you're interested in the ideas of dealing with situations in your workplace, future workplace, ways that people in the future might be trying to let off steam and taking it a bit too far, and the possibilities of full dive sci-fi starship writing, which would be fucking awesome.
Ray, are you suggesting that this is a great alternative to escapism when you want to play out your dirty thoughts on the workplace?
I wasn't suggesting dirty thoughts. I mean, he removes their genitals, so that's not a thing. But I mean, people get frustrated and then they go into their favorite computer game and shoot all the NPCs. Lots of people do that.
Wow,
because they're just NPCs and it doesn't matter. But games are more and more introducing sort of cause and effect and consequences for negative actions within games. And this sort of takes it to the nth degree that these NPCs in inverted commas weren't NPCs; they were sentient code, copies of people that he knew. So that makes it 10,000 times worse. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of different levels to this story, and I really think it was well put together, even to the cheesy lines, the crappy techno babble, and they really deliberately screwed it up to make it funny in sort of a crappy sort of technobabble way. But yeah, I rate this one really highly, and I recommend that anybody who likes Star Trek and can put their tongue in their cheek while watching should check it out.
Awesome. Well, I think that this is a must watch. I think that this movie plays out a lot of social nuance topics that people don't like to talk about. I think that this is one of the things that I like the most about Black Mirror, is that they always capitalize on those specific topics, and it kind of gives you a good thought experiment every time you watch Black Mirror. Is that you get questions that you never thought you could get answers to when it comes to social interactions of all kinds. I think that this is a must watch if you like Star Trek. The more, it's very dark psychologically, but I don't think that it is fucked up. At least that's what I think. I think that man, we should start. Even though we're not a review podcast, we start like doing at the end, like with final thoughts, 1 to 10 rating, a personal scale rating. What do you think about that?
I think it's worthwhile. We'll have to convince some Admiral Happy Endings though. He might be a little bit rough on that one because they're there were ones that you personally like and ones that you can accept as, large enough IPs that you can accept that they're good even if you personally don't like them. And then there's things like 2049, which are pieces of crap. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that it's gonna be more of like a personal review scale. I think that it will be could be a good thing. It'll create a little bit more relatability between each of us individually as hosts and our audience. Because I think that a movie is 3 out of 10. Somebody does agree with me, but some other people don't. You know.
Yeah.
So I think it will be fun. Again, we never claimed to be a review podcast, so that scale, that Rotten Tomato scale that we're gonna make, is gonna be more of a more personal point of view than a real assessment about whatever we're covering, right?
Well, I'll leave it to you to go over to Robert's house and twist his arm.
Oh, I will, man.
It's a bit far for me to go. Other side of the freaking planet.
but yeah, I think that this movie is a must watch. I think that compared to most of the things that you can find in Black Mirror, this one is on the light side, and it has a good satirical, comedic touch to it. Definitely, I think that it's worth watching, and it will give you a little bit of escape if you go a lot under the pressures of workplace and interpersonal dynamics. Definitely.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So I think that we're ready for our next segment, right?
Oh yeah, except we don't have the linking audio. But it's the science behind science fiction.
The science in sci-fi.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it.
See, Robert, we're doing it without your pad board. We can do it. A cappella.
Okay, so before we get started, I'm just going to turn this on. Come on.
That's not how it works.
Press the button. There we go. Hashtag that's not how it works. Okay, so DNA sequencing at home using a little device attached to your computer. In fact, that's been available since 2012.
3D
believe
printing.
It or not. Freaky, huh? Now, while I say that you can do DNA sequencing at home with a USB stick attached to your computer, it isn't capable of doing an entire human genome and arranging it in a fashion in which you could do anything useful with it. It can do certain lengths of DNA, but then working out how they all fit together, because DNA has to be broken up. It can't be just sequenced end to end particularly easily in a small function like that. You wouldn't really be able to do a full human genome. For smaller things like bacteria or fruit flies or something like that have much less genes than we do, you could probably get through a whole one, but it would take you quite a while. Now, having said that, using this nanopore technology, which is the system that they use these days to sequence DNA, the world record for the fastest human genome sequencing is 5 hours and 2 minutes. Pretty freaking impressive.
I thought that was after we integrated quantum mechanics, quantum computing into it, right?
No. I don't know if quantum computers are involved in this, but it's a much larger system than sort of a desktop version or something you can plug into your computer. But that's the fastest that humanity has managed to sequence a human genome. Now, given that the first human genome sequencing started in the early 90s and took 13 years to complete, and it took worldwide collaboration to do it, the technology has really come along in leaps and bounds. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you could sequence an entire human genome on the desktop. And it's not right now, at least as far as we know. There may be technology out there that hasn't been released to the public yet where you can, but it isn't in general usage at this time. Now, the fact that you can sequence an entire genome in 5 hours and 2 minutes doesn't mean that you can do anything with it. It's a whole bunch of code. And to actually turn it into something else would be quite difficult because all proteins, which is the main thing that your body's made up of, have primary, secondary, and tertiary structures. So not only is the code important, but the way the protein is folded changes how things work and then how they're all fitted together. This is why we can't just make humans.
Yeah,
Because it's
I mean,
way more complicated than just having the code.
it's like when we came out with the technology. Oh, we can clone a living being, and then they clone the first goat, and then people don't understand. Even though that's a clone goat, it cannot walk and do anything. It's just a living limp body. So it's great technology for harvesting and for organ transplants, things like that. But it's not like we are creating life on a laboratory yet.
Well, although it's pretty much illegal everywhere because
Yeah.
it's dodgy, I think the technology is currently there where you could actually take a fertilized egg, remove the DNA from it, and then put in your DNA and create a clone of yourself. But that doesn't mean it is going to have all your memories. It doesn't mean that it's going to grow up like you, because we are not a function of our genes alone. We are genes and environment.
That
So
means that I'm very close to have my kid with Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
oh, okay. So have you talked to her about this?
I just go and grab a hair from her somewhere. I don't know.
Okay, fine.
That's a paparazzi.
Dear. Again, refer you to the hashtag running across the bottom of the video. Now, look, I suspended reality for this show and said, okay, pretend that you could do that. Then this show works. But it's not how it works. Now, as far as I know, because there could be technology out there that isn't shared yet, that we don't have a way to create a fully digital version of ourselves inside of a computer. It's been done in a lot of movies. Chappie, this movie,
13th floor.
13th Floor. I mean, yeah, fully digital versions of people running around in computer systems, learning and growing. To do that, you would have to simulate their mental functions down to a very specific level. You basically have to do a molecular scan of somebody's
You know, a movie that
mind,
we
brain.
haven't covered. There's two movies that we haven't covered that go in depth on that specific topic. Transcendence with Johnny Depp, which I want to cover. That movie is great and actually covers that very well. And also Replicants with Keanu Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
Actually goes in depth on this specific topic, if you think about it.
Well, better add those to the list.
I actually added it to the Trilo, and now I have to move it to the Noches, but
And
we have to find out where the heck are they being played, because like one of our blacklist favorite, Tenet, it was on HBO Max. It disappeared. Something is going on with HBO Max. I don't know what the hell is it, but a lot of IPs that I really like, that I used to watch and rewatch, are gone from it and are nowhere to be found.
So just jumping back to the point I was making, you could scan somebody's DNA and understand their genetic code, but that wouldn't give you the structure of their body. It wouldn't give you, things that have happened, like their wisdom teeth that come out and they got scars and pimples and stuff like that. It wouldn't cover any of that stuff. So that's all environment and experience. Pretty much, if you were trying to get a digital version of a person down to pretty serious fidelity, you would not only have to scan their mind, but you have to scan their entire body and enter all that data in. Now, if you had a good enough molecular scanner, you could get the information, but it would be a huge amount of information. The sort of computing power and storage power you would need to do what they were doing in this show does not exist yet, as far as I'm aware. It's just not fast enough to get all that level of detail moving around at normal frames per second so that you would recognize it. Of course, you could simplify the data, like remove the genitals. That would save you a bit of computing power. So, but really, as we are now, we couldn't do this. And it's not logical to expect that you could get all that information out of the DNA. So that was sort of like a plot hole you could drive a truck through. But again, like spectral, it's a good idea, not quite executed successfully, which is a shame.
But that's one of the things I think that this episode and Black Mirror and this kind of shows make sure to be open about it. Is it's not about accuracy when it comes to reality. You know, they're very open about we're just gonna make this a thought experiment, and trust me, your science is not gonna work in here.
Well, I mean, I'm writing a sci-fi story at the moment, and
Yes.
I'm trying to make it internally logical. So, what's known about our world and how it functions. I'm trying to step beyond that to make it futuristic, but I'm not going to just completely ignore something that needs an explanation so that it makes sense and works. That's not my thing. I prefer to have internal consistency with our current world. So I think that they could have done that, but they just went, it's too much trouble. So
Yeah.
we just go with this.
I think that if they would have made an actual series out of that specific topic, because that's the thing, it's a conglomerate of short stories. But if it was a full series, they probably would have embarked on doing such.
Yeah.
That they would be a little bit more consistent when it comes.
I mean, if they had full body scanning to put the person into the game, so like to play Infinity, you had to step into this pod and get your body scanned, and it only did it at a certain fidelity so as not to create a perfect simulacrum that then somebody could use to fake you digitally and then and sort of steal your identity. But then he fiddled with it so that it scanned at much higher detail level and then stole that data plus their DNA. That would have been cool. I would have really got on board for that. So, I mean, if they'd had a technical advisor that was worth their salt, we might have seen something like that.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't have the time for it because it was a pretty packed show. There was no quiet sections. It was very busy. So some of the other stuff that they're thrown in there for flavor, as far as this obviously being in the future, they had those digital door signs and the sort of screen on the front and back of the door so you could look through the door without opening it. While I think it was a smart idea, having your door number electronic was dopey. Dopey as shit, because as soon as it's a blackout, nobody can find an apartment number. Now, they might have had internal battery backups or something like that, but say the place got EMP'd.
Exactly. If you get EMP'd, like that's the problem with being 100% dependent on technological resources. The moment that you fry everything to the core, it's completely obsolete and non-existent.
Yeah. But I mean, buildings have stairs that don't require electricity. Buildings have door numbers on them, which will be there unless the place burns down.
Yeah.
But these door numbers, they're temporary because as soon as somebody breaks that screen or the power goes out or it gets otherwise electronically screwed, you no longer have a door number. Now, door numbers are hugely important.
But that's useful. That's useful because that's how they could not catch Corbin Dallas.
Nah, look, I think digitizing door numbers is just stupid. That's my opinion. You can argue with me.
I agree, and I think that's the main reason that probably hasn't happened yet is because of that. Same reason why, even though we have buildings with elevators, due to safety precautions, there's always going to be emergency ladders and staircases.
That's right. Yep,
It doesn't matter.
exactly.
It doesn't matter how modern we get. I think that that's always gonna be is because we at least we've spoken on this in previous episodes, but we are not at the point where we can say technology is the way to go 100%, and we don't have to look back for any backdoors. I think that there's always gonna be that. So we are always having a escape route, a backdoor, an alternative, so we can act on a contingency if something happens.
Yeah, definitely. You always want to have a manual way to do something because technology is not infallible.
Don't do it the IKEA way.
You lose that little Allen key in your toast.
You mean this
He's
one?
got one in his drawer.
This
Yeah,
one?
that one, or
Oh,
the other
oh,
one, or the
oh, you mean this
1600
one?
other ones. Yeah, or the other one. Or the, for those who are listening, he's pulling Allen keys out of the drawer of his desk. So,
Yep, I got a collection in there.
dear. So that the other thing I wanted to bring up, they did try and make this look like it was a little bit in the future. They had big screens that and the guy had little sub screens around his big screen, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure what they were supposed to achieve, but it looked different than what we do at the moment. There was also the thing about him being in his virtual world in his USS Callister game and being able to get notifications from outside it, because obviously his sensors were blocked so that he could
Yes.
be in the game without interference, because dealing with two different sets of stimuli at once would really mess you up.
Yep.
But he obviously had something a bit like Google Home, which I did a little bit of a check, and interestingly enough, Google Home only became a thing in 2016, which was when this was being written. So they jumped aboard that train very quickly and integrated it into this story as part of future living, which I thought was very well done of them, that they were on top of that.
Yep.
And then they made it so that he could get messages from outside the game in the real world while he's in the game, which makes a whole lot of sense, because you look at IPs like Sword Art Online. They're all lying there on the bed and they've got no way to know what's going on in the outside world. And actually in Sword Art Online, in the second season, people were going around murdering people who were playing. They were breaking into their apartments and killing them while they were playing so that they would die in the game, and it made it look like the people in the game could actually kill them.
Yep.
So, that was a big thing. If the Asuna in Sword Art Online had an alarm system on her door, that when the magnetic thing was broken, when the guy forced his way in, it would have alerted her in the game. She would have known that she was suffering a break-in. So having a way to be notified by Google Home or an alarm system or whatever that you're undergoing a break-in while you're in a virtual world that blocks off your current reality's sensory perception is a very smart and sensible thing to have.
I think by the end, when they living locked out and the game deletes itself, I don't think that he's gonna be prisoner in there. He's just prisoner until that device runs out of battery, I guess. But
Probably.
it's enough time for them to run out and disappear and be beyond his reach for sure. Because that's a terrifying thing. I think that's one of the things that hold me back for becoming a trial guinea pig for Neuralink, to be honest.
Yeah. Messing with your brain can be problematic.
And not only that, but being able to voluntarily interrupt background processes on your body. It's actually tricky that if you think about it, if you're able to really disinject perceptory sensors like hearing, smelling, then what's stopping you from being able to hack into such devices to stop other processes like heart beating, breathing, what they call the reptilian part of the brain,
Yeah. No, I mean, like in SAO, they just microwave people's brains when they died in game.
Yep. You know that they created after Sword Art Online, they created a VR that can actually kill you, right?
Well, Sword Art Online, the VR headset could kill you.
No, not in real life. They created a VR headset that has like three sticks coming out of the forehead that would kill you.
Ooh, pass.
They created that in real life. I was like, oh my
I
god, man, this is why
I would
aliens
never
don't
put
visit
that
us.
on. Who would
Like,
put
why
that on?
people will make shit like that?
Takes all types, I suppose.
But
So,
yeah,
did
man.
did you have anything sciencey that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, we kind of spoke about the replication, the DNA sequencing and replication. It was
Yeah.
not really realistic. So not that I can think of the top of my head. I think that we cover it theoretically throughout the topic, and you did finish it off in the science and sci-fi. But I do
Yeah.
think that this is a must watch for sure. It's very thought provoking, and it brings a lot of social thought experiment questions into the table.
Cool. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Science Fiction Remnant. We had a lot of fun with this one. There was a lot to think about. Highly recommend you go watch it. If you go watch it and then want to have a chat about it, we're always available on our Discord. We do love to have people join us there and chat to us about different shows that we've done. And of course, you can also suggest an IP that we haven't covered yet. And if you give us a really good reason why it's so fantastic and would have lots of fun talking about it, then we're very likely to get on board with that. And of course, if you'd love to come and talk to us about it on the show, you're quite welcome. So hit us up on our Discord. There's a link on the screen now, or you can use the invite link that's will be in the show notes underneath the where you get the pod, and you can come and join us on Discord. We have a couple of websites. The first one is obviously sciencefictionremnant.com, where you can find our latest episodes. You can find a back catalogue. You can also find articles on different things to do with science and science fiction, which not only have the hosts written, but we've also had some guest writing stuff. So do check those out, with more to come in the future. The
And you're
other
more than
website,
welcome. You're more than welcome, actually. Let me interrupt you to join in the writing. If you have something of
good
substance
point.
that you want to share about that is science or sci-fi related, about an IP that you love to, bring it on. Just reach
Oh,
out, like Ray said, on our social medias. Talk to us, and let's make it's a community effort at the end of the day, right?
yep, definitely. Definitely. The more, the merrier.
Yep.
The other website that we have is called thisissci-fi.net, and that's one dedicated to the hashtag This is Sci-Fi. It's in its infancy, so there's not a whole lot of info there, but certainly check it out, see how it's going. Drop back in from time to time. You'll see more information getting there. Well, basically, for those who aren't big on the socials, this will be a place to find out about all sorts of different science fiction IPs and how people are interacting with them. So do check that one out. It should get big given a little bit of time.
Yep.
As Captain Chaos said earlier, our Patreon will be rebooting very shortly, and we'll be doing a whole bunch of background stuff, extra items that you won't be able to get access to from just listening to the podcast or watching the pod stream recording on YouTube. So consider that one. It would really help us out because it's not free to do this stuff. Robert is actually ponying up the cash to do a lot of this, so it would really help out if you'd like to become a Patreon for Science Fiction Remnant. Of course, poor Captain Chaos over there.
I actually wanted to use a nice tactic that I saw from one of my favorite
Oh,
podcasts. Actually, that
yeah.
is that we're hobbyists, so this is coming out of our pockets right now. If you want me to have a Shure microphone, which will be great, I don't have money for that shit, but we could get it through your help with Patreon. You know, right? I love that suggested
Definitely.
language. That guy was like, it's Dietz from Space Castle, which, by the way, you should go and check him out. He's awesome. And basically, he goes like, I'm a hobbyist. I do this on the side. I would love to have a Shure microphone, but I don't have money for that shit. But you can help me get it with Patreon. Hey, Shure microphones are good, man.
So while you may appreciate our material, a Patreon might be a little bit too expensive for you because it is a monthly subscription. So if it is a little bit too much for you, we also have the option to buy me a coffee. Of course, I don't drink coffee. I drink the real deal.
You got Pepsi today? Come on.
Yeah, I got Pepsi today. I'm not monstering it up. My current time is 2:14 a.m. So if I drank a Monster, I would not sleep at all time. So let's not do that. But buy me a coffee will help out Captain Chaos with his monsters and coffees. So please, if you could spare a few shekels, pop them into that one. There's a link on the screen right now, and there'll also be a link in the podcast notes where you could help us out there. We have our hotline that you can leave us a message on. That number again, where is it hiding? Further up in the show notes. 1-305-563-6334. That's 1-305-563-6334. And of course, you don't need the one if you're calling domestically within the USA. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate that you listen to this show. If you like what we do here and this is your first time joining us, please do check out our back catalogue. There's lots of great, awesome IPs there that you can listen to. There's the other episode in season 1 for Black Mirror, which was also very thought-provoking, so check that one out. And you can find out all the sorts of things we like. And you can also recommend some that we can cover that you're interested in. So we'd love a bit of cross-pollination. Please let us know. Reach out to us on Discord, as we've said earlier, and let us know what you'd like us to cover. If we haven't gone through it yet, we'll certainly give it a go. So do join us on Discord. Do join us again on the show. And with that, thanks for coming, and we'll catch you next time on Science Fiction Remnant.
See you next time.